All right, everyone. The DNC continues to disallow Tulsi Gabbard into the debate, despite the fact that she herself is now claiming that there was, according to the DNC's own particular metrics and standards, a third qualifying poll. Depending on who you believe, she's either right or she's wrong. It doesn't really matter, though, because the fact is, when you're cherry picking through the polls, such that a candidate who's twice as popular as certain others that are getting in is kept out, there's a reason for that. It's not coincidental. I do not believe the DNC. It's like a couple of other articles over the last few days have been written, and Steyer is actually in. So Steyer manages to get in. Gabbard is still out. There's no possible way this isn't the result of cherry picking, and yet I'm seeing articles that are defending the methodology and saying it's a conspiracy theorist if you think that Gabbard should be in the debates. Yes, I do. I think that the Democrats... doesn't this, by the way, Steyer being in, doesn't that necessitate an 11-person debate anyway? I thought they were going to split it if it went over 10. Or did somebody drop off the stage or something? I mean, Inslee dropped out. He was never really in contention, though. I don't even know exactly what methodology they're using at this point. And she's right, they're not being transparent about it. If they're being so transparent, why can't I find the methodology? What specific method was employed to arrive at the conclusion of which polls were going to be used and which ones weren't? Because it seems like every single poll that's being used has one thing in common, which is that Tulsi Gabbard doesn't really appear on it. So, in other words, it's like asking her, like, you need to get 3 points in a poll that your name's not on, I guess, is basically how the DNC is doing business now. If Klobuchar is in and Julian Castro are in, both of them measurably below Tulsi Gabbard in the RCP's perfectly proper aggregate of polls. It's the most popular aggregate for a reason, because it's the most esteemed, it's the most accurate. If she can be a point or so ahead of these people that are actually getting in to the point where she's closer to like a Yang or something, he's certainly, and he's riding at like 3.5% or so in the aggregate. Why shouldn't she be in? It doesn't make any sense. The only reason is, as I said, because they don't want her on the same stage as Elizabeth Warren. She already attacked Kamala Harris. She's shown that she not only is willing to break rank with all the other Democrats, they're like having a constant like happy time sort of shit. Like Andrew Yang came out the other day for like Bernie Sanders' birthday, I guess, or something like something. Oh, congratulations! Oh, you've moved our country in the right direction. It hasn't stopped now. Like the best is yet to come. So you know, it's a love fest. It's not really a contest. When they sit up there on stage, there's relatively little actual disagreement going on. They've all basically adopted the same generic far-left platform anyway, leaving out Biden, who the DNC doesn't care if he gets beat on because they can always nominate Warren anyway. He's on his last leg. He can barely stand or speak. He's having like eye bleeds and shit. Trust me, they don't care about Biden anymore. They want him as nominee. That's their first choice is Joe Biden. He's the one that's managed to, you know, remain sane, so to speak. Elizabeth Warren is waiting in the wings. If he were to croak tomorrow, Elizabeth Warren would be the one they'd all flock to. Big reporting about how Elizabeth Warren is also a fake grassroots candidate. She's a fake everything. She's a con artist. She's a total con woman. She's conned the entire Democratic Party into thinking she's running a grassroots progressive campaign. She's not. She's an old establishment neolib, and she has been since the 1980s. Look at her track record. Look at her actual donor setup. She had tens of millions of dollars before the race began, bankrolling from her time in the Senate and from a bunch of corporations that she then pretended once she got in she wasn't part of. That's how she's bankrolling her campaign. She got a huge infusion of corporate cash, and then she said, now I don't need the corporate cash anymore. I can pretend to be grassroots, according to what I'm seeing. The DNC is run by corporate neoliberals. They're not far left. I mean, they'll offer you socialism, but they just do it to get you to vote for them. If you're actually like a Sanders socialist or something like, I mean, the DNC is not going to represent you. It's impossible. You can't formulate, it's impossible. Think about the coalition that you're trying to build when you're trying to get a single candidate to represent your party. You're telling me that you intend to attempt to wine and dine the furthest left socialists, people who think that we need New Green Deal, free, quote unquote free, healthcare, education, debt forgiveness, student loan debt forgiveness, blah, blah, blah. You're going to try to reconcile that with somebody, you know, who runs a multi-billion-dollar corporation. They don't want to pay more taxes. They don't want to have to bankroll these fucking projects. And they're not going to, because under Sanders' tax plan, it'd be the middle class and small businesses absorbing the cost as always. Don't fucking try to lie to me and tell me that he's actually going to go after multinationals successfully. I'm going to get money from the same groups that bankroll me and everybody else in Congress. Yeah, but good fucking luck, Bernie. Doesn't matter if you become fucking president. Not going to happen. The DNC's trying to keep Gabbard out because she's the only person on that stage who's not a male who will actually be willing to attack Elizabeth Warren. There's nothing else for her to do but punch up. She'll attack Warren's record directly. She'll wait until Warren says something and then she'll interject. She'll do as she did Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris was riding at 10, 11 points, doing fairly well in a fairly close fourth place behind sort of the cluster, which is Bernie Sanders and Warren. She was at that point at one point. Arguably for about a week she was in second place, although statistical noise largely. She doesn't have to face any problems from any of the other viable candidates. They're all male. Every single one of them, except for Kamala, who's already been knocked down a peg by Tulsi Gabbard. There's your fucking conspiracy. It's not a conspiracy theory to suggest that the DNC is worried that the person who is waiting in the wings as the only other neoliberal at the top, Buttigieg, he's not viable anymore. Kamala Harris has been knocked off her pedestal, never really was viable either, let's fucking face it. Bernie Sanders is a true maverick, he's also nuts, and they're never going to nominate him. That leaves two people, fucking Joe Biden and fucking Elizabeth Warren. If Tulsi Gabbard gets up on a stage and knocks Warren out, they have to hope to God that Joe Biden manages to straggle his way into the general. He gets nominated, probably after a brokered convention at that point, manages to stand upright for an additional nearly year while he campaigns in the general against Trump. By the way, I watched Trump's speech in part last night. He's come roaring back to life. I have a feeling he'll be reelected. The way in which he poses the things that he says, the audience participation, the us versus them mentality in an internal sense, America versus the world. He's doing everything right. His strategy, I believe, will work. I can't see anyone up on that stage capable of winning. Someone like a Gabbard who could arguably potentially win is not allowed to by the DNC. By the way, her age would be a problem. The same is true of Buttigieg. He's only in his late 30s, I think. He's like 38. The two, very, very young politicians. They're like the youngest edge of Gen X, I believe, or the oldest millennials, these two. Kamala's the only one who's mostly of an appropriate age range. She can't cut it. She's already slumped. She's already peaked and she's slumping. She's not going to come back. Fuck it. They are terrified because Gabbard is unhinged enough to actually say what she means, because she wants to score kudos with the population. She's realizing the value of a real grassroots campaign. You've got other people doing this, like Yang is kind of doing this, but he's not crazy enough to attack Elizabeth Warren and get called a sexist, because he knows that'll happen. Even if she won't say it, the DNC will say it, Salon will say it, Huffington Post will say it, her fans will say it, and they're much more numerous than the Yang gang is. They'll all say it. Beto O'Rourke, Cory Booker, Buttigieg, what do all these people have in common? They're all male. The only other viable female at that top level is Kamala Harris. She has already been knocked out by Tulsi Gabbard. And that's exactly why they're going to keep fucking screwing Tulsi Gabbard. It wouldn't matter. The whole bottom half drops out. And Tulsi Gabbard stays in, so she's like, actually in fifth place. They'd still find a way to keep her out. Oh, we're sorry. You didn't meet the qualifications in time, so you still can't come to our party. Sorry about that. They know that even though that's catastrophic for the DNC's brand, it's better than the alternative, which is getting their golden girl, Liawatha, as Trump calls her, knocked out. Gabbard can do that, and because she's a non-white female, they can't call her a racist or a sexist. That's basically what it boils down to. That's about all. Peace out.